We'll be live by now. All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday night. This is the Awesemo Golf Wednesday night show, the late show, as we like to call it. I'm Ben. Got Jason with me. Ready to talk some golf. We got a full field. This isn't 34 guys non-cut. This is a real tournament, Sony Open.
Yeah, man, this is really exciting. I personally like a full field a lot better than the no-cut events. It's just it provides an edge in cash games of getting 6 of 6 through, and it just provides that extra DFS sweat as well, and also eliminates a lot of the lineups if you have a good week. Yeah, we've got a great show, and we've put obviously a lot of change going on, and change is good. We've lined up what we hope is a pretty good lineup. We're going to also always get to your questions at the end. If you're in our Slack channel, it's a great way to get some lineup questions answered, and we'll be doing that at the end. But before that, we're just going to kind of run through some fun segments that we put together. We're also going to give you a quick little update on the weather, any tee time advantages, and so on and so forth. And of course, not everything will work out week to week, and we won't always have a tee time advantage. And It's important to always bring up. And then we'll go over, we're going to do a buy or sell segment that we're going to call going for it or laying up. And I'm going to present some options, and we're going to kind of pick some sides. And then we're going to do a make the cut segment. So some guys that are probably priced a little bit lower that, we think have a chance of making the cut might get in there as well. I can think of one name that I'm interested in. And then we will finish it off with some of our hottest takes of the week. I'm really excited. I know that I'm going to get a South African golfer on Ben's side. He's going to talk a little bit about Dylan Patelli, so I'm excited to hear about that. But before we get into that, let's go right into talking about the Hawaiian weather. I just want to start the program off nice and slow. It's going to be beautiful the next 2 days. There's no tee time advantage. Most wind we're going to see is 10 miles per hour, and pretty prime scoring conditions, huh?
Yeah, sometimes, obviously, these courses, resort style, it's not the most imposing. The one variable, coastal, it can be windy. I don't even think we're going to get that. You said it, prime scoring conditions. It's nice, it doesn't mean if you're playing enough lineups, I still will have some where I group 6 in one wave just to do it. You never know, it can change on the fly, but this isn't one where you really are going to weigh anything. You play it straight up on face value, select the best golfers, and really go from there.
Absolutely. I definitely am agreeing with you there. Now, I think it's interesting that you're still going to pair 6 golfers in 2 lineups. So some of the marquee for tee times that I looked at, I just want to bring up because I do like to stack tee times as well. I don't know if this is a strategy that you look into, but certainly even the golfers talk about how they can feed off each other when they're when they're in a round. So one of the marquee ones at 8 a.m. local time to be one of the first tee times we track is going to be Bryson DeChambeau, Gary Woodland, and Jordan Spieth. So interesting there. It's going to be pretty hard to stack all 3 of them, but definitely one I'm going to be interested in. Also, I have a 7-10 tee time of Abraham Answer. If you like first round leader odds, that's an interesting one at 50-1 going off the first bet. So you take a look at tee times and any that you like, either right off the bat or in the afternoon.
So, yeah, I mean, you make up a good point. Obviously, it doesn't always work like this, but you do like guys. Generally, we want our golfers going out early. Obviously, if you're new to golf, what they do, if you go out early one day, you're going out in the afternoon wave the next. But they get the good conditions, the greens and whatnot. Most of the guys I just actually happen to like are in the later. Right off the top, obviously, JT, who I think most people are going to be starting with. I think he's the best overall player. He's in the afternoon. And then you got the wild card. I know we're going to be jumping around a little, but Decky's a guy who I'm having real trouble getting kind of a gauge on. He's in that same bucket. He tees off at 12:30 p.m., local time there. So I'll be, again, I'm not weighing it heavily. I'll be playing it pretty straight up, but some of the guys that I'm most interested in happen to be in the later wave.
Yeah, and let's talk about Hideki for a little bit, just for a minute, because I think last year it was really interesting that somebody brought up that when he played with golfers that just totally outdrove him, hit the ball way longer than him. I'm talking, Rahm, DJ, those guys. He really struggled. But here he's playing with Ian Poulter and Mark Leishman. He's going to be bombing it by both of them. So psychologically, Matsuyama could come into that a little positive. I'm taking things that I've heard in the past, and we're going to turn this into our buy or sell segment in a little bit. But How about that? I mean, is that something you'll buy that I'm pitching to you?
I mean, it's tricky. I don't know. Do you? I don't want to toss it right back to you immediately,
Mm.
but we're so early in the year, and it's like you have so many guys. Whether it's they're coming off a down year, someone like Adam Scott, or they played one tournament, whether it's the tournament champions last year, they went to Australia, something like that. And then there's just so many guys where we truly, or at least I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like with that comes ownership at all different levels. The guys we've
Mm-hmm.
seen probably do get an artificial boost. And then there's some guys coming in, obviously, your boy, and we're going to get to him in full. Someone like Spieth, who's already adamant that he's kind of, taking this as a litmus test. I think there are a lot of guys in this field that are doing that. Doesn't mean I'm excluding them. And I think that's the key, just balancing your lineups, even within that, to get enough risk while having some guys that you feel pretty good in terms of where their game is at. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think so. And a lot of these guys that we're going to talk about, that we didn't see play last week are going to carry lower ownership.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in the first buy or sell segment, I'm going to throw at you the exact scenario, and I'll give you my side as well, is Matsuyama playing with two guys that he can clearly control. He can likely see their second shots almost every time. I'm personally going to buy it, and I'm also going to buy the low ownership for MME. How about you?
I'm with you. So Decky to me is definitely risky, but to me it's a worthwhile risk, especially if you're playing, a multitude of teams. He's a guy that we've seen. I'm not saying he's coming out and going into Decky bot mode where it's just unstoppable, but he does have that gear. I do worry a little. He is somewhat aggressive off the tee. These are hard to hit fairways. They're narrow, but at the same time, he's a guy that if you're taking a long term, if you zoom out and you take a long picture view, he's clearly underpriced. I don't think anyone would dispute that. It's just a question of where his game is at right now. So, that's a pairing. I'll have exposure to all three guys. Leash and Bolts, no problem with either of them. But Decky to me is going to be lower owned than he would be if we had more information.
Definitely. One last note on the tee times. James Hans going off the first tee on the back nine last year, had a pretty good fall. So first round leader bets we just talked about. The thing about going out first is that you're getting the course in prime greens. You're getting it cut perfectly. So that's just why you typically see guys that go out first, second, third group typically post a pretty good score. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the lowest score of the day. But all right, so the next part of the buy or sell segment that I want to give you is in golf, which is so different than every other DFS sport. Guys are changing equipment. This is like changing teams basically in football or any other sport. And so either they change equipment, or they change caddies. So I got a few big ones this week. One of the guys that has been with his caddy for quite a while, won 2 majors with this caddy, comes to this golf course. He's looking like he's going to be pretty popular, and that's Zach Johnson. He dumped his caddy, who was notorious for flying the bird after he I don't know if you ever saw Mr. Dammer do that afterwards. But in any case, are you buying Zach Johnson's renewal by getting a new caddy, or do you think this is going to hurt him in the short term? So I'll take
Yeah, so Zach Johnson, I know we haven't done shows for too long. I don't want to say I'm a Zach Johnson hater. I just rarely, if ever, play him. I actually like him in this spot, though. I think for cash, you definitely can look there. One of the safer guys. Does that hurt him? I think it's going to certainly be a minor disruption. Just like anything, there's a muscle memory aspect to it. But he's such a veteran guy to me. He's seen this course plenty. I don't know how big of a deal it is specifically to this week. For this segment, though, obviously, I'm going to be passing it back to you even more because you're one of the reasons I'm excited about the show is I'm an awful golfer. I bring nothing to the table in that sense. So you would know more. How big of a deal do you think, changing your clubs or changing your caddy could have on a golfer, even one who is pretty experienced?
Yeah. So here's the thing. There's a lot of debate, and as the course history debate rages on in this DFS industry, in the actual PGA or regular tours, there's always a debate about caddies and do you need a professional caddy? Can you just stick your best friend on the bag and do well? And I think it's really golfer dependent. So we haven't seen Zach Johnson with another caddy in 15 years. So this is going to be really interesting. The last time that we saw something like this, Jesus, is the Phil Mickelson, and we saw that it took Phil really, he went to his brother, so it's not like he went to some other random guy. He went to his brother, so it was an easy transition. We haven't even heard who Zach's going to. He might even be using a local caddy, which Matt Kuchar just won a tournament using a local caddy. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. Where I do think it actually helps. So I'm going to go neutral on the Zach Johnson new caddy. I think it's a to be determined. But the one I'm actually more interested in is his caddy went to Ollie Schneiderjans. And there was a nice article about Ollie and how he was really excited to get Dameron on the bag because Ollie just had felt like his game had gotten into a rut and he needed something to re-energize him. And of course, Ollie's not going to say to the reporter that, hey, no, hiring this guy doesn't re-energize him. But that's what he said. So at 6,900 with relatively low ownership, I'm going to buy Zach Johnson's old caddy helping Ollie get at least to the weekend.
Ollie's an interesting one. Yeah, so he's 6,900, one of the, I think, better options, sub 7K, mostly by default. I think it gets pretty weak. And we'll touch upon that, especially when we get a little egregious later in the show. The one thing, though, man, I know you've obviously looked at it. He has had, it's not just a little blip. His form has been bad for a while. Like, it's almost been since Waste Management at this point. That is a little scary. I still think the talent is there. The key to me is what he does. Obviously, this isn't groundbreaking. He's got to shore up the tee to green, though. The off the tee, he can't bleed strokes that severely. So I'm interested to see, when I think, and maybe this is misguided, when I think of a caddy change, I think, reading greens, maybe even around the green. I'm not sure how much that will help him, with the first two shots. And that's really where I think Ollie's fate will be sealed one way or the other. I have some this week. I think I probably come in right around where I expect ownership. Are you taking a huge stand in terms of exposure? You think, you kind of go in line with the field?
Yeah, I think for the MME purposes, the $5 or the $3 20 entry max. For me, I'm gonna go a little overweight, and here's my reason to it. His worst statistical category has been off the tee. There's no doubt about it. It's really bad. But where he has been good is when driver is not really in play. And my hope is that, yes, Dameron is just a caddy, right? But I'm hoping that he can help him out with sight lines, and I'm hoping that he can help him out. Take that stinger, that 2-iron stinger that is just a thing of beauty, and put that in play all week. And then hopefully his irons connect. We know his short game is okay. So I guess for me at 6,900, there's not that many guys this week that, I want to give a lot of exposure to. So I'm going to buy Dameron, getting him at least to the weekend. And if Ollie makes the weekend, I saw a great point earlier this week. He led the field in birdies through 2 rounds in an event. I think it was the RBC Canadian Open. Led the field in birdies for the first 2 rounds and missed the cut. So we know he can score.
No doubt.
And yeah, if he gets to the weekend, I think he's got a chance to at least get some DraftKings points.
Absolutely. He's a classic case, and we're obviously going to talk about this throughout the year, and we're going to be touching on some basic topics, especially early. He's a classic case of a guy who can come in 45th, but he scores the 20th most DraftKings points, and that's what you're really after. Placement points are huge, but until you're in the real top, it's almost all an extra birdie for moving up 30 spots here and there. So we'll get to that. I just wanted to chat. I couldn't see you for the beginning of the show. I got you up and running now. What's going on, people? We will obviously get to all those questions as well. Jack, if you're watching the show, I saw Temple win. Good stuff. Anyway.
That was pretty pumped about that.
That was why there was a slight delay. Sorry for the not 9 o'clock start. I had to watch them close that out. What else do you got in terms of guys in that kind of range, or is there any other in terms of club changes? I know you touched upon early in the year, we've seen some guys, maybe they're testing out new equipment. Maybe they've gone with a new caddy.
There we go. Yep, sorry about that.
No.
I actually got some good ones. It's a lot of club changes. And again, here's the thing. This is one where it's going to take some time to see some players, we'll get used to the clubs. But one of the ones that I'm most interested in was Abraham Answer went to these Mira irons, which is a very, they're how do I say, they're like a luxury brand. They're like the, Louis Vuitton of golf clubs. Golfers play them because it's hard to market them to general consumers because the general consumer is just not going to pay that much. But he put them in the bag recently, and he won in Australia with them. So I'm interested in Abraham Answer not just for the change of the clubs, but also because the ownership looks relatively low and the upside seems to be there right now. So these are just giving me talking points. I don't know if you could buy the club change, but do you buy the low ownership?
I definitely buy the low ownership. So, first thing I noticed with Answer, he's right next to CH3, who got to play. Normally this is his start because he never wins of his season, but he actually got a event under his belt. He's coming to a course he clearly loves. I think we see him in both cash and GPPs in terms of highly owned. Then you've got Stanley Kuchar. There's plenty of other guys there. Zach Johnson, as we previously talked about. Answer should be somewhat lost in that shuffle. So if you want a guy who, you said it, he certainly flashed. He was there multiple times last year. Couldn't close, here and there, but those were in some really tough fields. Does feel like a matter of time. I think you're paying a premium, but that's going to add to the negated ownership. There's a couple guys. Kisner would be the other one for me. He's, I think, just overpriced. You might be able to get over with 7 to 10% though. So that's something you want to weigh here and there. They're not going to be prevalent in my lineups, but at the same time, I don't think I have to allocate a ton in terms of my portfolio.
No. Couple other club changes, and interesting to note that a couple defectors from PXG. And again, this is another luxury brand. It was a defector from Ping who started PXG and had a great lineup the first 2 years, but a lot of guys that was in that initial lineup left. Charles Howell went back to Titleist. So not really concerned about that. And the switch back to Titleist, he won almost instantly. So you just see those kind of things happening. Bubba Watson had the Volvic deal and left them, went back to Titleist, won. So whether it's an equipment thing or whether it's just a level of comfort that they get their positive mindset back, and we know golf is such a mental game. So just those are a few. Ches Reavie actually went to PXG. That was spotted recently. Gary Woodland switched to Wilson. He had that driver in the bag last week and looked just phenomenal with it. So of all of those, can I get you to buy any just based on club change?
I have no idea. That's something. So I think it's a good point though for people, because I always talk about this. I think it's important to know what you know and also know what you don't know. I have no idea. If I tried to factor anything in, that would just be misguided. So what I do, I don't worry about that. I'm not going to factor it in. I like Ches this week. I have him in my cash lineup. So I hope that doesn't. And you know what? That's going to be something I'll have to adjust on the fly. We've seen it can be an adjustment period. There's no doubt that kind of stuff, it's a working process. And a lot of guys, depending on who they are, they're using these early tournaments as a gauge, a measuring stick. So we'll see. But right now, no, I'm playing it pretty straight up. I do think, we'll kind of hone in. That range to me is the trickiest. The Ches, you have Scott Piercy there, who was last week. Chris Kirk is the guy I always get sucked into. Drives me nuts. So there's a lot of guys kind of in equal talent to me, and little things like the club change is certainly something you want to be aware of.
Those were the major club changes of the field this week. So I wanted to move into some buy or sells on ownership now. Of course, if you want to get the full ownership projections, we post them every week. I post my initial ones on Tuesday nights, and then of course Osmo puts them out on Wednesday afternoon. So one of the ones that I've seen, and these aren't going to be, I'm not going to go scientific on them. I'm just going to kind of go where it is, the line, just to kind of give you first one I'll talk about, and we'll get to the kind of 7,600 mentioned. But first, Jordan Spieth, and we're going to mention just the $5 MME because I think that's probably the best gauge or barometer.
Yeah.
Spieth, over, under 15%.
Ooh, I think it's going to be close. I'll say that. I'm going to take actually over, though. I think name recognition still gets him over. I don't know. Did you catch his presser today? It didn't inspire a lot of confidence.
I did. It was interesting to say the least. He's so cryptic with his personal life. It's insane. I mean, now I won't get too far into the weeds of the presser. I really enjoy listening to Jordan talk. He's very engaging. But when people ask him about his personal life, it's and there's no pictures of his wedding anywhere. You can't find them. So it's just really interesting that he's so guarded about that part of his life. And yet is so forthcoming about how he thinks he sucks at golf right now. So, it's interesting.
I'll say this about Spieth, and I'm not am I factoring this in a ton? No. But Spieth is the kind of guy who, like, I feel like he's downplaying expectations a little intentionally.
Yeah, gaming us, definitely.
Yeah, like there is an element. I don't really expect that he really believes he's coming here just to, mess around and see where he's at.
No way.
Like,
he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't waste his time. No.
So
it's a long flight. It's a long flight from Dallas. So
that's the other thing.
To mess around. Yeah.
It's a good point because normally, as he will, I'm sure next year, he would have played last week. If Spieth came here, it wasn't like he was on the island like JT and most of the top guys. So I don't really worry about that. Having said that, it's not a spot where I'm really dumping on Spieth. I do think it goes over the 15%. What about you? You think it gets there?
I think that it's going to be right there in the $5 and probably a little lower as you go up in the buy-in, to be honest with you. I don't think many people will go back to him quite yet. But you just mentioned Justin Thomas. It looks like he's going to be, top of the board, likely in ownership. You think he gets over 30%?
I don't. Maybe in higher stakes when there's smaller fields, I could see him getting up to 40%. But for a big $5 tournament like that, again, I think he's going to come in, very popular, 20% over. That's a given, no doubt. But with the number of guys, and I see it perfectly relates. Friend of the show, Sal, just asked, stars are scrubbed or balanced? The real answer is you can make good lineups with both this week. I think the number of balanced guys, whether you talk about Decky, Casey, even someone like Cam Smith, starting with those type of guys, I don't know how many people want to jam JT with them, and that may bring him down, into that mid-20s kind of ownership.
Yep, I think that makes a lot of sense. But I'm going to disagree with you. I think he comes
good.
in
I like that. You going over?
Yeah, I'm going over. I think he comes in like 35%. And here's the thing. I think that the stigma around Gary Woodland and the withdraw thing, I think it's just sticking with people. And I think they're just going to spend the extra $300, take the variance, and that JT is going to make a few more putts, and he's going to beat him this week. So I think he comes in about 35% and probably even gets even higher as we go. I think that's the way the balance lineups. And you just mentioned a ton of guys in the 76, to 7,400 range where you can play JT and get away with a very good balanced lineup. So now we've talked about two of the guys up top, and I just mentioned Woodland, and I think that leaves a little void in a Bryson DeChambeau. I'm taking the under 15% in the $5 ownership. You think he's going to get over?
I don't. I'm going to take the under there. I know that's one I agree with you because I think people are looking at it somewhat binary in the sense, or at least this is how I'm mostly looking at it. If I'm going up, I'm going all the way to JT. And if I don't, I'm going to take an actual discount, not $300. And I think what happens there, it creates a vacuum for him. Leishman's another guy in that bucket, I think, where you'll see people start in the 9K range, or they'll just get the money and they'll just go to JT. And I totally get that. So I think he comes in under, and that's scary. If fading Bryson is always scary. It's a tough guy to peg.
It is. All right, last one on ownership. Again, you can get all the ownership rankings, all of that from us on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So the last one is in a guy that we're going to talk about also a little bit later, and then we talked about it in our Slack chat last night. And this guy has been tearing it up on the Japanese tour, Shugo Imihara, and I believe I pronounced his name right, guys. If I pronounce his name wrong, please just tell me how to pronounce it. But I believe I got it right. Looks like he could come in somewhere maybe like 5 or 10%. No, it's kind of crazy, but what do you think about that?
For me, I'm going to let other people chase that. Not saying the guy's not talented. There's just too many other guys in that. So if he was like flat 6 and it was like, wow, I can build a unique team. I don't really want to play Mackenzie Hughes, who I think is the only guy you could even look to. I would do it. But you talked about it. Ollie is $100 more. Keith Mitchell is $100 more. I like some real sick people like Nick Taylor, things like that. I'm not there. I don't know anything about this guy. I looked at his stats a little. He's been killing it on the Japanese tour. Do you have any interest there?
Okay, so here's what I found out about him. And again, this is the Japanese tour, so understand that he's leading the money list. Like Kiradech, Happy Barn Rat plays 2 tournaments and like gets into their order of merit. Like the level of competition is not great, and I'm not trying to take anything away. If you come in the top 10 every week, no matter what tour you're playing, professionally. You're a good golfer. He hits 70% of his greens. He hits about 60% of his fairways, and his average drive is about 290 yards. That's going to put him in like 130 everywhere on the PGA Tour in almost every category, and a little bit lower on driving accuracy, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not over-inspiring, but hey, his scoring average is like 68.5, so he obviously can score. If the best part of his game is greens and regulation, then we know that his irons are probably the best part of his game, which could help him here. He made the cut last year. Not going to have 10%, but I'll probably have a couple shares to see it out.
I mean, I do like that he played this course last year. I think that's important. If he was coming in with a blank slate, I'm going to have 0% regardless, but I would really have 0%.
You'd be telling me that I'm crazy.
I totally get the merit there, especially, there's a chance too he comes in 2-3%, and then you might get leverage with a couple of shares. So it's wide open. It's the first tournament of the year. We've talked about there's a lot of built-in variance because we don't know where a lot of, like, perfect example, you'll be hearing me spew Ben Martin's name a lot on these shows. I don't think I can go there. There's been a 6-month layoff for that guy right now. That's the kind of guy, if I had more information, I could tell you, what, I like it. And that's what we're dealing with here, even though it is a full field, which helps.
So before we get into a little bit of our hot takes, I want to bring in this Make the Cut segment. And the reason I'm doing this is because we just mentioned it. Ollie can come in 50th in the tournament, 50th place, but come in 15th or 20th in DraftKings points. So this is just going to be kind of those guys. And like I said, I'm mostly going to pick below 7K guys. This is just going to be guys that maybe you've come across in your research and say, yeah, you know what? I can see him playing Saturday and Sunday and, not making noise in the tournament, but could help a DraftKings lineup at least get to the line, or maybe even a little higher if he throws in a birdie streak or an eagle. So I always do 13, and I do 13 because it's just a favorite number of mine, and it's not a favorite number of many people. So first one, we're going to go with right off the top, the guy we just talked about. Our guy Shugo Imihara makes the weekend.
No, sorry. You came all this way from Japan. You'll have a flight home Saturday morning, my man.
All right, I got him going to the weekend. So
all right.
I'm just typing just so we can keep track.
We got to keep records. I like it.
All right, Ollie with the new caddy.
I'm gonna go no. I know you're gonna go the other side. I'm closer on him. I'll say that, but I'm gonna take a firm stance. I'm gonna say no.
Okay. All right. Keith Mitchell.
Yes, I think for me, sub 7K, Keith Mitchell's my favorite play in the high sixes.
Right. I am nervous about the fall thing, but it's almost like a college baseball player coming to the pros. It's just so many more games to play at the pro level, and Keith had so many more starts on the PGA Tour than he did the Web Tour the last year. Maybe a little bit of a burnout. So I'm leaning no, but I think he ends up squeaking through.
Okay.
So I think he honestly, if there's an MDF, I think that he could be right on that line this week. So, and if you guys are new to golf, MDF is a Saturday cut, which is even probably the most tilting thing.
Yeah, that's the worst.
And that basically means that, no, it doesn't. It means that 80 or more golfers made the cut on Friday, the number, and they do a Saturday cut with the same top 70 and tie. So hopefully that.
The worst with that is when you've got a guy who's not even close, and then he shoots like 6 over, and he comes like, I remember Rahm getting cut. I think it was at the Honda or the Players.
It was at the Players, 100%. Yep.
He lost like 10 straight. It was like, well, okay. He was in like third, and then he didn't even play Sunday.
Crazy. All right, this is a good one because I'm leaning no here. Kevin Tway.
Ooh, that is a good one. I have a similar what you said about Keith Mitchell. That's what I'm going to echo with Kevin Tway. I think he sneaks in, but he's a guy at 7,500. I'm actually not on. I prefer, and we'll talk about Sanjay Im and Dylan Fratelli. I prefer both of them over Kevin Tway this week.
Yeah, he just didn't perform the way I wanted him to over the last 3 rounds. And it's almost like, beware the sick golfer. He came out on Thursday, the sickest he probably was out of all of his, and the drugs probably just got him onto another level, and he just performed. And that can happen in pro athletes. We're not going to sit here and lie about that. So I'm going to buy the Kevin Tway, heading back to the mainland a little bit early and getting that sinus figured up. I know he's going to be popular, so it's probably a take that, I'll get a little heat for, but that's all right. Next one is probably the PGA Tour's new rooting factor. If you guys did not read the story on golf.com this week, it's a really good one. But Jose de Jesus Rodriguez, I'll let you guys go read the story because it's great. Here he is on the PGA Tour. I would love to see him make the cut. I don't think he can, but he hit the worst part of his game as a driver. He doesn't hit the ball far. So I think that maybe he could make the cut this week. You going to buy it or not?
I'm with you. I'm rooting for him. Not going to have him. I don't think that he gets through. Not sure just the rest of the game. You said it. This is a course where if there was ever a course for him to maybe get through, it would be something like this. I don't see it personally, though.
Okay. Next one. This guy's gotten a little bit of a buzz on Twitter over the last couple of times that he's played. He had some good starts on the web. Carlos Ortiz.
Ooh, Carlos Ortiz. Yeah, he's always a tricky name, guy that I don't get right too often. I'm going to say that he does make the weekend. I think not a guy that I'm actively targeting, but at the same time, he's in a price range that, for me, Rory Sabatini would be the safest guy. He's 6,500. If you want to go lower, I think you'd have to go Ortiz. Not someone again, I'm not actively targeting him, but I feel pretty comfortable rolling the dice if I had to.
Okay. For me, he seems like a form golfer, and he seems out of it right now. Again, we haven't seen him in well over a month, so it's tough to really gauge what kind of form they're in. I'm going to take the no here and just wait until he makes one. But another name that I found kind of interesting, exactly in that same area, and it just so happens he's the next name on my list. And he kind of stands out in the odds too, and that's Kramer Hickok. And we saw him shoot a 7-under in one of the fall circuit tournaments in the first round, and I think even take the first round lead. So priced at 6,500, interesting value. I think he does make the weekend. I think this is a course that he can compete at least compete to make the weekend. So I got a yes. You want to take the outside?
I don't. I'm with you. I'm going to take yes as well. Another Longhorn, him and Fratelli. I'm going to be loading up on those Texas guys. I think he's a guy I'm going to be on in a macro sense early in this year. He's 6,500. I think when we look back maybe in a month or so, we're going to say, wow, he was really underpriced here. Not that he's going to be in the top tier, but I think he belongs in the sevens.
Sevens.
Yeah, low sevens. Put him in the Hahn, Ryan Blom kind of range. I will have some Hickok. Think he sees the weekend.
All right, so talking about another Texas Longhorn, and I did not plan this. We can send you our pre-show notes if you the next guy on the list is, do you think Jordan Spieth makes the weekend?
I do. I don't know what to really expect. I think a lot of people are in that bucket, but I think even if he doesn't come with his A game, he will find a way to at least see the weekend and get 72 holes in.
All right, so the presser, one of the things he said, the announcer or the interviewer, whoever it was, I can catch the name. He asked me, he said, why'd you miss the cut in Mexico? He said, because I was working on the wrong things. He said, I figured out what I was working on. I continue to work on the wrong things there. And he's like, I'm not surprised that I missed the cut. He said, I'm working on the right things, and I have been now. So I don't think there's a miscut. I really don't. I know his form has been out. There may not be top 10 upside yet, but I think we're getting closer. I'm not truly inspired, but I'm also not uninspired by the presser. Whereas in the past, I've been a little bit uninspired because he looked like he was reaching. It finally got to a point where he looked like he was getting a little bit pissed off with the guys continuing to ask him why he sucks, which I think is a good turning point because he hasn't quite gotten there yet. So I'm going to go with yes as well. All right, next one is another Japanese player that is ranked pretty high in official World Golf ranking, I think in the 60s, Yuta Ikeda.
Yeah, he's always, you see him in the, the WGCs and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with no, but at the same time, he's a guy that even if he makes it, I don't feel too worried about I'm not going to have exposure. I'll put it to you like that. I don't know how many times he burns you. He's going to be very low owned if you're looking to take a one-off. But just not a guy that it's tough. You see his world ranking and you're like, wow, this guy's up there. I don't know how good he really is. We'll see, but not a guy I'm too interested in.
Yeah, I think with him putting the ball in the fairway a lot, he's one of the top ones on the Japanese tour there in driving accuracy. If the cut, the problem is that the scoring conditions are going to be so good. The cut could be 2 or 3, maybe even 4 under this year. I know that seems low for this course. But Charles Howell in his presser talked about how it just continually gets better every year at this golf course. He said that when he first started playing, +3, +4 would be the cut, and now it's like -1, -2. So if it does stay at -1, I think Caddie gets through. -3, I don't think he's got enough in him to get through on this course at -3. So I guess that's kind of a half and half answer. But I got some really good ones coming up. Last three. Sam Burns, one of my favorite golfers. I don't know if I love him this week, but you think he's there for the weekend?
I do. He's a guy that, again, I prefer James Hahn in the same range, 7,300. I actually really like the spot. He was second last year here. But Sam Burns is a player. He can get hot with the putter. There's certainly going to be your account, as we like to designate different guys. I'm not a huge fan of his, not opposed to him either. But I do think talent's good enough to carry him through.
Yeah, I think you can see an Aaron Wise type ascension from him, which basically means volatile, but can see him in the top 5, maybe winning towards the back half of the year. But you're going to see volatility in him, no doubt about it. All right, so Dominic Bazzelli is my last one, and there's definitely a little bit of narrative street here as well. What do you think? You think the narrative street gets him through to the weekend?
Perfect timing. A friend of the show, our good buddy Karl Marx, just mentioned Bazzelli in chat.
That's awesome. Good timing.
Bazzelli's the kind of guy, and we'll speak to this. I know you've been dropping some awesome content, not just for this, but for showdowns. I like to target him in showdown because he can get really hot within a round. His putter can get going. It's volatile. So, he's someone where a cut makes a huge difference because he's the kind of guy, he gets through the weekend. He can go nuts in one round and move up that board. I'm going to say he gets cut here. But at the same time, he's someone I would almost still not worry about targeting because you're just taking the flyer that you get his good rounds earlier because he's just a very, very volatile golfer.
And if people already know this, I certainly apologize, but he is playing on a medical exemption, and he has basically he's got 2 starts left. He needs to earn equivalent of top 5 in one of the 2 tournaments. So if not, he's not going to have his card, which means he's going to have to Monday qualify, and then he's probably going to have to head back to the Web.com Tour Finals, unless he can get that top 5 or 2 top 10s. So definitely something to play for there. All right, that ends our Make the Cut segment. Again, use that for if you're doing the GPP flyers and you're just trying to get 6 to 6 through. It's a fun segment. We'll try and keep track of all the ones that we did and see how good we do. And I'm going to really try and keep it at the 7,000 or some chalky guys that, and it's interesting that both Ben and I are kind of off of Kevin's way. But it's a good way to kind of get the conversation going. So, yeah, the next thing that I had on here is some head-to-head matchups. I'd like to take a look at the round matchups. It just adds a little bit of betting. Also like to look at the tourney matchups to also correlate those to DraftKings and FanDuel prices. So one of the first ones is right off the bat is Abraham Answer versus Sam Ryder. We just talked about Answer. It's a -150 line, so you're paying a little juice. Or you can go and get the half a point, at least at the book that I was looking at, for -115. Abraham Answer, again, I think he can compete in this tournament. Sam Ryder kind of fizzled out. Would you take the other side, or are you going to go with me on this one?
I'm going to go with you. If I had to bet it, it's not one that, I'm going to split the difference in the sense I wouldn't bet it, to be honest. But if I had to, I would go Answer. I think, of course he's juiced, he's more expensive and he should be. But at the same time, Sam Ryder's a guy I'm not actually too high on this week. And we did talk about Answer. I think for me, the biggest problem is his price tag on the sites rather than his game. I expect him to play well. It's just more a matter of if he comes, with a middling performance, what is that going to do in GPPs if someone like CH3 or Stanley at that same price point really gets up there?
One that I know you've at least looked at. I don't know if you dabbled. I know you did last week. This line is Champ versus Casey. Are you dabbling again this week, or are you staying away from him?
No, I'm going to continue. I have 0 Cameron Champ in DraftKings. I will be betting against Cameron Champ. And if he continues to putt, again, he gained another 5 strokes putting. It's just not something that I will be holding back on. That's awesome for him. Good for him. I don't think this is a good course fit at all. We'll see. But no, I will be betting all the matchups against him, and I would fade him in DraftKings once again.
Including our boy Jordan Spieth, because I heard that's kind of a big one, and I saw some other people, in our little Twitter sphere talking kind of about the other side and going against Spieth here. So definitely an interesting one. I like Spieth here. I don't think this is great. Yeah, but it's an interesting one. The line's minus 105. So it's been bet down because Champ was getting plus 130. So very interesting. You took Spieth in that matchup. I take it.
I would. Spieth makes me nervous, obviously, but at the same time, it's more just I think that Champ is going to be overvalued for a while here. And that's as simple as that. Maybe he is this good, and maybe he's just secretly an amazing putter and an amazing driver, and then I'll have a real problem on my hands. But you know what? I've seen a lot of golfers for a little stretch where people are just like, this guy figured it out. He solved golf. He's never going to not come in the top 10. And then they don't come in the top 10 for a while because they lose 3 strokes putting.
Right. Yeah.
We'll see. It's not an indictment of him. I think he's awesome. I really enjoy watching him, but I'm going to be shorting him just because I think a lot of hype has really raised his profile.
Definitely. Last tourney matchup that I had listed, then I'll turn over to you to see if you have any, is Andrew Putnam versus Danny Lee. Listen, I know that Danny Lee has been hot, but Andrew Putnam's been hot. So I'm just going to go with Putnam. I'm going to go with Putnam getting in the exhibition, quote unquote, start last week and played pretty good. You like Danny Lee over him, or do you kind of like both?
I don't mind either. I'll say this. I'll take a stab with Danny Lee in this one. And I'm just going to point to, and I know it doesn't exactly work like this. Putnam played last week, and just a quick snapshot. He lost 4 strokes off the tee. He gained almost 7 putting. So, he really, not that he played fantastic, but came in 14th, was a solid showing for him. It was really elevated by a really hot putter. If that sustains, there's no reason why his off the tee shouldn't improve too. I'm not going to say his putting's going to regress and his off the tee is going to stay bad, and look at that. But at the same time, Danny Lee has gotten back in form. He's not a great Bermuda putter, if you're looking at the splits. I'll take a stab, though. I think Danny Lee is one of the more volatile players. Roll the dice with him.
I like it. Yeah, I will say one thing about Putnam's strokes gained off the tee last week, and I don't know how much this gets factored into when people look at it, but he was going up against probably the top 10 guys. So it may be a little skewed, whereas, if you take Tway, Woodland, DJ, JT out of that field and replace them with, say, even like Jordan Spieth and Tiger Woods, his off the tee strokes gained off the tee might have been a little bit better versus the average of the field. Again, that's not necessarily true, and that doesn't mean he's going to come out and fire it this week. But what I did like was he had the combination, the strokes gained putting and the strokes gained approach, that has been consistent of winners here, at least in the past. So obviously I know that we've had little variations to that, but Patton Kazir, or Kazire, I always do that, a little bit of some Freudian slip there. He showed that to us last year. He lost strokes off the tee here, lost almost half a stroke per round off the tee, and still won the tournament. So that was my last one. Do you have any other tourney matchups before we get to some Slack chat questions?
Not really, to be honest. I'm not taking it overly. Did you bet anyone outright real quick before we? Adam Scott I saw floating around Twitter, and I don't hate that. We'll get into him just in general in a second. I didn't bet a ton on the straight betting side this week. It was I didn't see a ton of stuff that appealed. Did you have anything else, or was that basically the gist of it?
So 6-1 Justin Thomas kind of eliminated a lot of bets for me right off the bat, just because my hope is that he honestly comes out and shoots a 600 tomorrow and leads the tournament, because I think that could open up a lot of odds on guys that might be 2 or 3 shots back. Long odds I like Emiliano Grillo this week, but at 36-1 with Justin Thomas, that seems a little short for him. Now if Thomas comes out and shoots a 5 under and Grillo's back to 50-1, then I'd be interested. But yeah, it seems short.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we got, as we always do, our friend of the show, Coolers, has dropped a list. I have it. Do you want to rapid fire some golfers? Just yay or nay from a DraftKings perspective?
Yeah, I'm totally in. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. We got some good guys here. They're, we didn't get too egregious, which I appreciate. Sometimes they give me some real sickos. First one, Adam Hadwin.
I would rather go to Pat Perez.
I'm with you. I don't mind Hadwin. He can get hot with the putter. I'd prefer Poulter or Pat Perez. Second one, I mentioned him a little Ches Reavie. You mentioned the equipment change. Does that deter you, or are you just going to still have some?
I'm in on Reavie. He's a form golfer for me. You know, he went on a straight 22 straight cut made. Then he missed 12. Now he's back on 7 made straight. Yeah, I'm back.
Like it with you. Joel Dahman and his weird hat. Do you like him?
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me. He definitely had a great last half of the season to secure his job. Basically, actually, really, he was in jeopardy. Really came through. He's got a great caddy on Twitter. If you guys don't follow him, I mean, just they're great personalities. I like both of them a lot. Probably rather go to Sam Burns, but he is in my player pool this week.
Fair enough. Yeah, he got crazy hot with the irons last year. He was in rarefied air. You knew it was going to regress a little, but that was impressive. He showed he could play out there. Oh boy, this is a time. This guy, I almost made it through the whole show without saying his name. Russell Henley, who, God, that's a tough one.
I am actually going to go to the next guy on the list, and I'm sorry to jump. I'm going to take Siwoo over Russell Henley this week. I'm going to have. I don't think I'll have any shares of Russell Henley. I would take all of them to Siwoo this week.
I like it. I got a lot of bad nicknames. One of them is the Henley Whisperer because I get him right more often than not.
Tell me something.
I don't like him this week. I hate to say it. I'm not on him. Not that this is – I don't think this is pertinent, but it's if people don't know, Henley's first start ever was at the Sony Open, and he won. He came out, and he just blew the field away.
It's so insane.
All downhill from there, basically, but neither here nor there. He's been in some spotty form. You know, he's a talented guy. I just don't think – I'm with you. A perfect segue to Siwoo. I would rather take him and just hope we get one of those. You know, we've seen Siwoo obviously did it at the Players. He can do it. This is nothing in terms of field strength. He easily could handle a field like this.
Yeah, definitely. I like. First of all, we know that he's so streaky with the putter, and I like that at this tournament. You've seen that at this tournament specifically, strokes gained putting. You need a hot putter, and we know that Siwoo can do that. We know his ball striking is pretty elite. I mean, he won the Players in a ball striking event. I mean, you had to play well that week to compete. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the thing with Henley is I also have just trouble. A lot of times, you know, I'll take a look at a guy who's not in great form. I'll try to identify what's wrong, whether it's, you know, he can't hit the ball off the tee. Henley's not doing really anything egregiously bad or good. It's just 1 week it's around the green. Then he can't hit irons. Then his putter goes cold. That's like a whack-a-mole situation. It makes me really nervous because it's just something is not clicking. That just freaks me out. I don't know. I'm kind of staying away until he rounds back into form.
Yeah, I would rather just take the $600 salary save and go get Putnam, who's a similar golfer, you know, or go get Ches Reavie. So last guy on this list that we got is Bubba Watson. I would rather just eat the chalk and go to Matt Kuchar or Zach Johnson. Listen, he had 11 3-putts last week. It's terrible. I mean, the worst putting I think I've seen in a really long time. Probably going to get a little better, but this just.
So it's funny. I'm going to say, well, yeah, that was awful putting. I'd rather go to Adam Scott, who's literally the worst putter ever, but I would.
Did you hear what Scott's going to do? Yeah.
So you can you were saying, I believe on our, I don't know, I think that was our Friday show, which you can check out, college basketball picks. I'm on a little run here, so come stop on Friday morning. Anyway, yeah, Adam Scott's going to leave the flag in too now. This is becoming a virus. It's highly disturbing.
Yeah, and the worst part about Scott was he said, I'm leaving it in on every single putt, and if I have a 6-footer to win the Masters, I'm leaving it in there too. So really interesting. Obviously, it's something for me. The science behind it, obviously, it's there. I'm not going to question Bryson Stanford DeChambeau. I'm not going to do it. What I also will do is I'll add to the mental side of it is a target to shoot at. And with Adam Scott and Jordan Spieth, man, they could not hit a barn from 5 feet last year. So this cannot hurt them. I think it can really only help them. So I'll buy that. I'll buy that rumor, and I'll buy Adam Scott over Bubba Watson.
All right. Yeah, Scott's a guy that, like I said, I think I'm going to try to buy low on him, hoping he gets back to that old form. We got a couple more, then we got a hot take, and then we'll bounce on out of here. Carl, we got to get to Carl. Your boy Brian Stewart. Do you have a take there? I don't.
Yeah. I love my guy Stewart. All right, so last year he came in with good form. So that's what I want to mention. He came in with good form. He did have that top 5. I think it was 4th place, if I'm not mistaken. So that makes me a little nervous because he's not coming in with the form this year. Again, when I say form, we're talking about November. So we're talking about 8 weeks ago. It's a rather long time. But I still think that momentum can carry on, especially when you know that you've already picked up a quality amount of FedEx Cup points through the first 4 tournaments. It might take a little pressure off him. I'm not as in love with him as I definitely was here in this spot last year, and I implored him out there last year. I'm gonna have him in because I'm obligated to, because he got me my first big score in DFS golf, so I have no choice. Yeah, Carl, honestly, dude, the stats don't look good for him this week. I know he'll hit every fairway. I'm just not sure.
Fair enough. All right, we got 2 more. Jimmy Walker shouldn't be plagued by Lyme's disease. He got over that. Believe he won here. I think he did.
Yeah, he actually had back-to-back wins here. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, course history is very good here. Last 2 years, he's missed the number. He's missed the cut on the number, so it's not like he's missed it by a lot. So Lyme disease is debilitating. I had the exact same thing as him when I was younger. It takes away your energy. But now he seems like he's healed. The right regimen. It's something that never goes away, but only has flare-ups. Should not really affect him. At 7,400, I absolutely am playing him. He's actually just outside of a core play.
Okay, wow. I'm not there in that sense. I may have some shares, more of an opportunity cost. I really like Fratelli. I like Sunjay Im, who's right above him. And then I'm also on Han right below him. So it just didn't have a ton of room to get to him. I totally see the merit in playing some. I'm going to certainly make a little room. Oh boy, this is fitting that this is the last guy.
Yeah, isn't it?
Knox.
Man. No.
I'm not there personally, but
I'm gonna go to. Geez, I would rather just pay 400 less and even go to the chalk of Scott Piercy, who we haven't even mentioned on the show, but it is likely to be chalky this week. Yeah, I'm just not there on Russell Knox. If he was 7,300, 7,400, I would play him, but they won't put him that low.
Yeah, I think it's just there's too many unknowns for him. And I'm paying a premium, like you said. If it was a discount, I would say I don't know what he's been doing. I'll take the stab. But there's just Scott Piercy, even though he's frustrating and there's a lot of risk because he can't putt. He did play last week. He's an incredible ball striker. And there's a multitude of other guys right in the high 7s that you mentioned Pat Perez before. You could go to other guys over Russell Knox and feel pretty good. Yeah, so that was good. Before we give our hot take, I got to give the obligatory, if you can hit the like button on the video, we always appreciate that. We're just warming up for the season here. We'll get into high gear, obviously, and whatnot. But this is the best part of the show. We're carrying on the tradition, obviously. We got to give a hot take, and then most likely they will be wrong, and then we'll give more hot takes next week. Do you want me to go first? Because you're technically, this is your first Wednesday night of this show. Do you want me?
Yeah, I think you should kick it off.
Okay. I'm trying to say, do I just dive in, as I say every time, do I go Dante's peak level, insane hotness, or do I just...
I think you should. No, I think you should go straight for the Inferno.
Straight for the Inferno. Okay. I'm going to go, I was going to say something about Fratelli. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say Cameron Champ gets cut.
Wow. I love it. I mean, I think that's great. I think that will should generate some plenty of buzz. Okay, geez, how do I even follow that one up? Geez, because I can't. Jordan Spieth winning. That's not a hot enough take because he's won so many golf tournaments already. So
yeah, we need real sick stuff. What are you thinking? We got.
All right, I do. All right, I got one. Okay, I think Ollie Schneiderjans finds his way back into the top 10.
That's a good one. I like that.
I think that, first of all, if you do look at the odds, if you're into that stuff, the each way, I think there's a relative decent value in him. And I'm buying that it's like an Apple coming back out with a better iPhone. I'm just saying that I'm hoping he's going to come out with a better Caddie and get back to the form that we know is there. So top 10 for Ollie this week.
That's a good one. We both gave ones that at least have a chance. Sometimes I get too out of control, like when Bill Haas is in the field and I have him winning by like 10 strokes. We don't have to deal with that. We don't have to deal with Peter Uihlein. We're all blessed this week. For that. The one nice thing, obviously, last thing before we get out of here, this is in Hawaii, so you're going to have some time in the morning. Hit us up on Twitter if you have questions. If you're in Slack, even better. I'll certainly be in there. We'll talk 5-minute tuning if anyone withdraws, if we're scrambling. We do have some times before. It's not like the East Coast, but this was fun, man. First of many. So we're
absolutely.
Yeah.
I hope everybody liked the format. If you guys want to see us add anything or whatnot, we're definitely up to it. But tried to keep it innovative. I know that a lot of people will just go from kind of top to bottom on the salary, but we wanted to kind of just throw a little different out there and get some different discussions. So hopefully you guys liked it.
Absolutely. So stay tuned. We're gonna have a more formalized golf schedule. We're gonna be adding in. We may do some shows leading up to this. We may add a guest here and there. Keep it moving. But thanks for stopping in. Hit us with that like on the way out the door. Good luck, and we'll see you next time.
Good show, guys.